Hello everyone, welcome to Wrestling Royalty, welcome to Give Me a Hug Yeah. I'm of course Andy and I'm here tonight to be talking to you about Elimination Chamber 2024, which is coming next weekend live in Australia from Perth in Western Australia. We're going to be going through the card as it stands at the moment. We're going to be going through some thoughts and predictions, a little bit of chat about what's going on in the world of WWE at the moment. So we're going to go through all that good stuff. I'm very excited to be talking to all of you tonight. So I don't need to be shy. Make sure you hit up that comment section, those live comments. I always love to see what you guys think about what's coming up, what's going on, who have you got to be winning? Are we going to be seeing anything big happen in Australia? Before we get into all of that, of course, there's only one way to kick off this show, and that's the big, flashy intro. And for anyone who's joining us, who might be a bit confused, because I know we've got some people over on Give Me a Hug Yeah, we've got some people over on Wrestling Royalty. We are going live on both. So if you see that massive big sting for the Wrestling Royalty intro, don't worry, you were in the right place instead. You might be used to seeing Sam or Anth or Dan or maybe even Dom, a less cited Dom these days, but we are all part of the big family that is Wrestling Royalty, Give Me a Hug Yeah, and WrestleSphere, of course. You can check out some great content across all three channels. So I can see there's a couple of people in already. Mark, the predictions, People's World Champ is here already. We've got Dean in as well, saying hello, Scenescape Shop, good friend of the channels. So go check out Dean's side if you like a lot of art, nice relaxing art videos that you can just watch, have on in the background, see Dean doing his thing and creating some fantastic pieces of art that you can then go buy as well. Who's also a big wrestling fan, hence why he's here tonight with us. I'm not actually sweating, by the way. It might look like I've just jumped out of the shower. It's been a hectic Sunday, hectic weekend. My little boy turned 1, so happy birthday to Lucas. It's been a busy weekend to try and fit everything in, but I wanted to make sure I see you all because I will not be here next week, but I'm sure the guys on Give Me a Hug Yeah will be doing some content, some great content, some watch-alongs for everything Elimination Chamber, as it's a lovely time for people in the UK and Australia to be watching, whether it be over in Australia where it's nighttime or across here where it's going to be a morning. You can have a bacon sandwich and a cup of coffee if that floats your boat. So there's a lot to go through. It's a small card so far, but we're going to go through it. And as Mark points out, yes, on SmackDown on Friday, where they were in Salt Lake City, they did actually they filmed both Fridays and next Friday's episode of SmackDown. So there are spoilers. I'm not sure if I've got any spoilers, but I think there's still a couple of things to be said in terms of one of the women's entrants. But yeah, Australia is finally getting themselves a big one. We did have that, I think it was Super Showdown or something that we had a few years ago, which we tend to just kind of gloss over because there was the whole DX versus Brothers of Destruction and things like that. So yeah, we didn't really want to kind of go into that, but they're getting a named premium live event like we got in the UK last year when we got Money in the Bank. These guys are getting Elimination Chamber. Elimination Chamber, if you remember last year, was up in Canada where we had that fantastic match and storyline with the Bloodline and with Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn not quite getting the dream win over in his home country, but very memorable, very loud. So Australia's got a lot to live up to when it comes to Elimination Chamber. But here's the Optus Stadium in Perth in Western Australia. And yeah, a stadium show for WWE and a premium live event. And that's the first question I'm going to ask you for a bit in the comments. When we're going through this card, bear in mind, we are in a stadium, not an arena. Do you think this card is befitting of a stadium? Because there's a lot of chatter on social medias to say it's quite underwhelming. We are missing out on certain matches, certain titles, and there's obviously reasons behind a few of them. But one of the big things I noticed is there's not a single men's singles title on the line at all. We're not going to get Gunther. Apparently, there's a lot of paperwork and things going at the moment to get him US residency, which means he can't actually leave the country. So he can't go across to Australia, he can't go across to Saudi Arabia or things like that. So hopefully that's sorted out by the time they do things in Europe, in France and in Germany, because there's some pretty big shows, and especially the Bash in Berlin, you would really want Gunther to be there. So it'd be such a shame if he's kind of tied up in some legal matters in terms of trying to get residency. But yeah, nothing like that. The US champion is there. Logan Paul is going to be there. We'll go through that, but not defending his title. So no title there. Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, no title matches there. But we are going to get a tag team match. So we'll go through everything like that. But we'll go through timings and what you can expect to see. So let's go through that tag team match. And Judgment Day have been holding on to those belts for a long time now. We've got this relatively new team in terms of on the main roster. Now, UK fans and fans of British wrestling might remember the likes of Mustache Mountain or British Strong Style when they had NXT UK, and even before that on the sort of independent scene, knocking around in the Birmingham area of the UK. Now, on the main roster, we've kind of been introduced to Tyler Bate as the one who's finally got us back to Pete Dunne rather than Butch. So it's been an interesting one to kind of see how the US crowds have been reacting, because I would say British wrestling has a very specific style into it, and there's a kind of a lot of hold locks, and you know, it's a little, you kind of get like almost comedic bits thrown in amongst all the kind of serious holds and submissions, etc. And I've been watching, very interested to see how Tyler Bate's been received, because Butch as he was, and now back to Pete Dunne, fantastic. He started to build a bit of a following, but I don't think he's ever been as popular as it felt like he was in the UK or in NXT. So it's interesting to see where they go with this. Do they have him in a tag team for a little while? Are they going to push him into back into singles? Could he be someone like a mid-card champion? You know, could he go for that US championship and take over there? But I'm intrigued to see where they're going to go with this. And this, to me, will probably be the best wrestling match of the night. I think you've got, three stalwarts of the UK British scene and Irish scene from years gone by. You've got Finn Balor, Pete Dunne, and Tyler Bate as well. And then you throw in Damian Priest, who obviously still has that briefcase. He is Senior Money in the Bank, and that's kind of been put on hold a lot. And I'm really intrigued to see what people are thinking about the inclusion of R-Truth in the storyline of Judgment Day. Has it got a bit stale? Because for me, it definitely has. I get what they're going for. They're trying to make sure they get every last bit out of it for now. But it seems to be falling into a bit of a repetitive pattern each week, and it's getting a bit disappointing, to be quite honest. I thought they were going to be done with it when they had Truth attacks by different members of Judgment Day, and Damian Priest said, "I'm not getting involved." Then he did get involved, and I thought that would be the end of that. But we saw on SmackDown R-Truth back out, trying to help out Dom. But yeah, really, really difficult to kind of see how they now get out of this. For my opinion, I would say they have to get rid of R-Truth out of this to make any kind of legitimate claim of Damian Priest being a world champion, because he still has that briefcase, but I'm not buying it. I just don't see how he sells premium live events, how he's the one that WWE will have on all the posters. I just don't get that presence from him at the moment. And I've seen him rise through the ranks on NXT, and even before that on the indie scene as, I think it was Punishment Martinez. And I don't get it. I don't see why they keep pushing him. And I just feel like it's got a mid-card cash in all over this, or some weird shenanigans where maybe they move the Money in the Bank briefcase off of him. But this has been the one for me that's been underwhelming, and that's saying something, because I know a lot of people didn't like Otis when he had the briefcase, and they were happy to see it moved on, even if it was to The Miz. But certainly for me, I don't really understand what they're doing. As Mark said, he said, I still think Damien was the wrong Money in the Bank winner. I tend to agree. I think when you looked at how hot people like LA Knight were at the time, even like giving it in retrospect, there was a lot of people who didn't want Logan Paul to have it, but it might have been the best in terms of like he would have held it and it's a bit more believable. He'd had matches at that point with Roman Reigns. He's talked about, he's relevant, and maybe someone like that could have had that win and really kind of pissed off the WWE universe. But right now it feels like Money in the Bank's kind of losing it. I've seen some people on social media saying get rid of it moving forward. It's got too stale and things like that. So let me know in the comments. Do you think Money in the Bank's gone stale, or is it just the fact that it doesn't feel like there's a lot of shine on it at the moment? Because quite frankly, he keeps saying he wants to cash in on a world title, and there isn't anyone to cash in on because Roman Reigns is very protected. Sometimes isn't there. Seth Rollins, they've kind of described as being he's not passed to be in the ring yet. So yeah, very, very strange. Got a couple of comments. Norma, nice to see you in, mate. And he says, love Truth and glad to see him get some TV time. But yes, it's gotten old, not really funny anymore. Instead, making JD look kind of stupid. It's a bit awkward as well when people abbreviate JD for Judgment Day, but then you've got JD McDonough in, so it kind of gets a bit convoluted. But yes, I think you mean like Judgment Day is kind of looking a bit goofy and a bit stupid at the moment because having this comedic role, I guess like people will kind of like it for a little while, but if it's starting to get a bit old for most people, it's time to move on. It's hard to take them serious as a hardcore heel group when they have a doofus hanging around. Yeah, and again, a lot of chatter that this is kind of leading into an Awesome Truth WrestleMania tag team match for the titles in Philadelphia, and I really hope that's not the case because we're in 2024. Surely at this stage we have to move on from the likes of Awesome Truth and potentially getting what I presume they're looking for is a feel-good moment. I'm not sure they would get quite the reaction they're looking for because I just think it's done. We've moved on from those kind of times. And if you compare it to WrestleMania 39, when the tag team titles were in the main event, it feels very much that they've gone backwards over the last few months because there's not enough relevance. And that's really disappointing from the perspective that we have some great tag team wrestling going on at the moment. We saw that Fatal 4-Way match on Raw a couple of weeks back. And that was fantastic. It's probably the match of the night, or maybe even the last few weeks. We've also had the Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne tag team coming around as well, and they're showing that tag team wrestling isn't dead. People like Street Profits aren't near it at the moment, and we've been getting those great interactions between New Day and Imperium. So lots of things going on. DIY as well. There's obviously a story to be told there, and getting them back up to the level they were probably at popularity-wise in NXT is going to be fascinating because they're still building that underdog story of they're getting beaten and so on and so forth. But I see Hassan's in, another Give Me a Hell Yeah regular. Great to have you in. And he's asking if this is the Elimination Chamber preview predictions. Sort of. What we're going to do is I'm sure Dan will be posting on socials out the official link for when he's going to get the Google form ready. So if you want to enter, like Mark is still gloating about his victory over at Royal Rumble, where he caught the win there. If you want to emulate that, watch out for the link on social medias where Dan will be posting whether he thinks the different questions up for this. As I said, we've got this, and there's this. I don't understand this as well because if anyone who watches NXT, there is a tag team on there with Drew Gulak, and I'm sure they're the No Quarter Catch Clan or something like that. And then they've renamed British Strong Style to have a sort of similar name. And I'm just trying to make sure I get it right. But they call themselves New Catch Republic. And I'm sure this is a name that's just been coined on SmackDown or a future SmackDown that's been taped. I'm a bit confused as to why they keep. I know there's a catch as catch can term in wrestling, but to have them both have that wording might get a little bit dicey. So I'm sure one of them's going to have to change in the future, and it might have to be the NXT lot, which is a shame because it does suit them a little bit better because they are supposed to be chain technical wrestlers, etc. So interesting to see what they do there. What do you think of that name, New Catch Republic, for Pete Dunne and and Tyler Bate. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that one. I think they should have kept it maybe as British Strong Style, unless there's a copyright issue and they've had to kind of come up with something new. But yeah, let me know. I'm going to say on this one, for my prediction, I think Judgment Day are going to hold on, and I think there'll be some hijinks with R-Truth. Unfortunately, will continue because R-Truth seems to pop up, whether it be Raw, or SmackDown, or probably over in Australia as well. So watch this space. I think he'll be in there, or maybe this is finally the moment where he costs it and we can move on. But I don't know if either team is really the one to catapult this into WrestleMania. But Finn Balor and Damian Priest probably have a little bit more star power at this point in terms of taking those titles in. I'd like to see them split. I think there's enough tag teams kicking around now to have a tag team championship on Raw, a tag team championship on SmackDown, and ununify them or break them up, whatever you want to kind of call them. But maybe there's a way to do that in WrestleMania. I think there's a lot of tag teams that will be vying for that spot. So maybe we see some sort of ladder match or multi-team match at WrestleMania. The home crowd is going to go crazy for this one because Rhea Ripley has been all over the advertising for Elimination Chamber. She seems to get crazier with her makeup each week and each shot that they're putting out there. And she's going to be taking on Nia Jax for her women's championship, or the Raw Women's Championship, I should say. And as I say, I think this is the one that's going to pop the home crowd. Rhea Ripley's been built and built and built over the last year or so. And this is kind of like her big thank you, I guess. So I'm very keen to see how they come about this one, because Nia Jax has been building a lot of momentum as over the last few weeks. And there's been these kind of back and forward where they've had Becky Lynch thrown in, but she's going to be in the Elimination Chamber that we'll cover in a little bit as well. But here we've got Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax. And I can't see anything other than a Rhea Ripley win, other than maybe some sort of DQ finish where she keeps the title, but Nia Jax still looks quite strong at the back of it. It would be a risky move because you'd think that you want to send the Australian fans home quite happy seeing their native win the title. So yeah, very interested to see this, but I think this is all about making sure Rhea Ripley looks an absolute star in her home country. And it'd be really cool to see that moment, because we've seen at Backlash where you got people like Damian Priest and Bad Bunny, and everyone went crazy for them. Now, Rhea Ripley doesn't have maybe as quite a catchy song in terms of, for people that would understand, there's no real kind of heritage between her theme and Australia. So I think people will be hyped, but I don't know if we'll get the same kind of response. But the Aussies are a great crowd. I'm expecting a great reception for her, and just the whole night as well. So everyone, or every time WWE have gone to a different country, they've always managed to get a lively crowd. So they need that to continue. Even the Saudi shows, I'd argue, are actually starting to pick up in terms of atmosphere, and people getting very excited for them being across there. That Saudi experience thing looks really cool. I wish they had something like that in the UK, where you can do, like, I think there's like an Undertaker escape room, and there's like different kind of props and sets that they've set up over in, I think it's Riyadh. So yeah, that'd be cool to see in a different country, and maybe at WrestleMania. I know there's big plans for a WrestleMania fan event that's coming back. Maybe not quite access that we've had in the past, but something is coming up, and they've announced it as well. As Norma has kind of pointed out there, it would be hard to believe they would take the belt off of one of the most charismatic Queen of the Mic stars and give it to Jax, who is none of those things. Yeah, it's very difficult to argue against that. Nia Jax, I would say, has improved since her first run, and she had that time away from the company. But being quite harsh, I don't think that says too much, especially when, you know, she's had those kind of the rumors and whispers that she's unsafe in the ring. There's a lot of people who've been hurt in the matches with her. Sometimes it's been unlucky. Sometimes it's just a case of like maybe a bit of sloppiness. But she does seem to be a little bit more determined, and we've seen a lot of her on the mic recently against Becky. But I think in the last week on Raw, Becky we'll go through this in a little bit. Becky cut a great promo, and Nia came out and did a whole like sort of spiel about, oh, that was a great promo, and sort of turned the waterworks on. And it was all going so well, and then this went, yeah, I don't really care. I'm going to be the one who goes into WrestleMania, but I don't think anyone's buying that. I'm surprised they went with Nia Jax for this one, but maybe it's a case of there's no one else, and this is more of a placeholder championship contender than anything else. And I guess on results, it's believable that she should get a shot. I just don't see how she walks away, and you don't see Rhea Ripley walking to WrestleMania against Becky Lynch. Spoiler alert, I think that's who's winning the Elimination Chamber. But yeah, that's who we've got. We've seen Nia Jax get the upper hand on Rhea over the last few weeks as well, which normally would indicate that you're going to see the other way around when it comes to the actual match itself. But I believe Nia Jax is undefeated in sort of hasn't been pinned since she's been returned, or since she has returned to the company. So that'll be probably the story that they tell and make Rhea look even more dominant. What I would say is I think Rhea Ripley has to start really building up the women's title, because right now I just think that they're struggling because she's kind of sidetracked with the Judgment Day stuff, and being part of a group is all well and good, but what we need with that belt is for it to be built up, because I'd argue that's the sort of Seth's version of the belt, and it needs to be a bit more prestigious, and she needs to have some greater challenges. And the only way they're going to get some good challenges in there is if they actually build them up. And right now, I don't think they're doing a great job of it, because Rhea's not had a chance to interact with too much of the roster. So for me, that's going forward what they need to do. But I do have a feeling Becky Lynch is going to be the recipient of that next shot at WrestleMania. And there's just another picture of Rhea looking an absolute star. I think Bret Hart recently said that he was really impressed with Rhea's the way she is in and out of the ring. She kind of lives and is the embodiment of her character, and I think that's a perfect thing. She's gone from those kind of quite funny things with Dom all the way through to being really serious, and she gets a good reception everywhere she goes, which is probably a bit frustrating when she's supposed to be a heel. Now she's kind of turned to a bit of a tweener where like people will just cheer her because she's very popular everywhere. And we'll move on to the women's Elimination Chamber match, where we have most of the people set. And tomorrow night, we're going to see a last chance battle royale. Now, for me, it's a bit of a weird one, this, because I think they were saying originally that there was only going to be 4 people. But with it being a battle royale, that would be a bit of a rubbish battle royale. So what they've had to do is say that there are going to be other people involved. We saw Chelsea Green was kind of lobbying for a way in. Indy Hartwell, of course, from Australia as well. Candice LeRae were kicking around backstage, asking Adam Pearce for a way in to the Battle Royal. So it'd be interesting to see who does turn up. I think originally they were going to have Jade Cargill be in that match as well to get herself into the Elimination Chamber. And it would have been an interesting one. I don't think there will be many people in WWE history who have gone and had their first 2 matches as effectively battle royals, whether it be the Royal Rumble or the Last Chance one. But here is the current field. So what I'm saying is tune in tomorrow night for Gimme Hell Yeah and the watch along with Dan, and you'll find out as he does, and you can see his reaction to that on that watch along tomorrow night when Raw is on. But here we have Naomi. She's got herself back in there. We have Liv Morgan, Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, and Tiffany Stratton, who has got off to a great start on the main roster as well. So the way this has been built, I think they telegraphed maybe a bit too much. So possibly there's going to be a swerve. But Becky Lynch has been cutting a lot of promos and having interactions with both Nia Jax and Rhea Ripley in terms of needing to prove to herself that she can do this. The commentators have been building a lot up around the fact that this is Becky's first Elimination Chamber as well. So all the story going in is about Becky. Now, I'm not mad if we see someone like Bianca Belair get a shot, on the basis that I've wanted to see Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley for quite a while on the main roster. I can't see Tiffany Stratton being a big sort of sell for WrestleMania buys. That's what you've got to think moving forward, is this is a match. Whoever wins gets the shot at WrestleMania. So if you're thinking box office, I don't think you can look too far past Becky. There's a lot of stories going into this, and I would argue that both this and the men's is possibly some of the most loaded elimination chambers we've seen since it kind of came into inception, where we had people like Shawn Michaels and John Cena, etc., who were in it, Chris Jericho. But in terms of who you put into this is a strong field. It doesn't matter who the last person is. This is probably some of the best contenders you could have had in there in terms of people who aren't injured. You've got a newcomer in Tiffany Stratton. You've got some established names now in Bianca and Becky. You've got the returning Naomi, and you've got Liv Morgan, who's come back from injury. She's very popular on social medias, and she's got her sort of revenge tour, is what they've been saying it about as well. So we've got a couple of people who were saying Naomi for this one. And we'll go into what we think about Naomi's return so far. Norma saying probably be Becky, but wouldn't be unhappy with Naomi winning. So a bit of love for Naomi there. And we've been talking about Becky Lynch there. Tom Talks Rubbish is in, who's doing some great stuff on his channel and also on a couple of other channels as well. You can see some interviews with both Dom and Sam coming up from Give Me a Whole Yeah on some new interviews, because he's previously interviewed them, but things move fast in the wrestling industry. So check out Tom's work over on Tom Talks Rubbish and follow him on Twitter or X, whatever you want to kind of call it. And I'm sure you'll be very invested in some of the stuff that he's getting out there, because he gets some great guests on his show. So he interviews a lot of the people behind the scenes of wrestling media. So yeah, great guy, Tom. I'm looking forward to seeing more of your work. I thought, before we move on to Naomi, I thought the Raw Becky's promo that she cut was actually the best promo she's cut in a long time, possibly ever. And maybe, and I said this on my X account, maybe it's because the content of her promo meant a lot to her. It's very close to her heart. She was talking about her daughter and how she had to explain the things that she's given up, or times that she's been injured, and why she can't pick her daughter up because her shoulder's separated, or she's got a bloody nose, or why her daddy wants to fight Maui. And it was great because Becky's had times in the past where she's on the microphone and her cadence on the mic means she does a lot of on the microphone, and it can get a little bit old quite fast. But here she was very clear, very concise. Her tempo was fantastic. She seemed to be getting over with the crowd as well. And for my money, I just loved it. And, the whole lemonade thing is still a running joke by the looks of it. But I think Becky just looks a star. She talks a star, and she's great in the ring as well. So I think the money match is Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. They've been purposely kept apart. Becky's been part of that secondary women's match each time. When you've got Rhea has the title, you need someone underneath that to prop up the rest of the women's division, and Becky's done a great job against people like Trish or Mia Yim, etc. So it'd be really interesting to see how they go on. I think Xia Li might have had a match with as well, did a little stint on NXT. So Becky's been doing some great work. And here we've got Naomi, who had a match to get into the Elimination Chamber. I'd love to ask people, what do you think of her return? Because she's not had too many matches since returning. She obviously was in the Royal Rumble, came out as one of the first couple of entrants. And then she's had a little bit of a sort of back and forward with Tiffany Stratton. And then she had an Elimination Chamber match, which was a bit of a change around, and she went up against Alba Fire, which is why you can see Isla Dawn getting kicked off the side of the ring here. But let me know in the comments, what do you think of Naomi's return? Has it lived up to expectations? Was she always kind of destined to slot back in quite seamlessly? Have you noticed much improvement since her first run? She did great work in TNA, and you can see an interview that Sam did with Naomi when she was across in TNA. So go check that out on WrestleSphere. They've got some great content with TNA especially, and WWE, as well as AEW as well. So any kind of wrestling. They've recently been in contact with a couple of others like MLW. So watch this space for hopefully some great content coming up in the future. We've got the men's Elimination Chamber match as well, which I think is a stacked card. If you are a fan of the current roster, there's something in here for you. We've got left to right, we'll go through. We've got Kevin Owens, we've got Bobby Lashley, Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, and LA Knight. Yeah, that is the 6 men who will be going into the Elimination Chamber, and the winner of this match goes on to face well, I presume they haven't said it, but they'll be facing Seth Rollins at WrestleMania in Philadelphia. Let me know your predictions for this one, because I think, in my opinion, there's an outright favorite who seems to be all over the place on Raw. So let's go through it, because there's a lot of rumors still going on that both Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre are yet to sign new deals in WWE. Now, it's very, very difficult to kind of predict why they would put someone like Drew McIntyre, if he didn't have a contract, in a very prominent position at WrestleMania if he hadn't signed. So I don't fully buy it. I think there's something else going on. There's rumors that they've tacked on extra time, but if this is a way to make him sign a new deal, then he's been put in a fantastic position, because Raw is definitely focused around Drew's actions. We've seen him attack CM Punk. He's still poking the bear on that one with his t-shirts, the promos, the stuff on social media. And he's definitely kind of teasing that this is what we'll get in the future. Mark's just confirming there that it's Seth, because Seth's obviously still recovering from his injury. So I don't think he can defend his title until then anyway. And we are only a few weeks away, really, from WrestleMania. So we're getting down to the halfway point, if they call it that, of the road to WrestleMania. And we're getting these matches coming thick and fast. They're going to be announced. The WrestleMania section on WWE.com currently only has the one match, Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns. But after next weekend, we are going to have a fair few matches added on. Well, at least 2. We'll know a little bit more about where we are. As I said, Drew McIntyre seems to be the favorite. They're doing a lot of focus on him on Raw. He's even appeared on SmackDown, and it just feels like the stars are aligned that maybe we'll finally see Drew McIntyre get a world championship win at WrestleMania in front of a big audience, because that's been his gripe the whole way through, is that he won his first one against Brock Lesnar that we don't talk about anymore in WWE inside the Performance Center back in COVID times. And even from there, he kind of was robbed a little bit with Bobby Lashley cashing in on him. But yes, it certainly seemed that Drew McIntyre, in my opinion, would be the outright favorite here. But you've got people like Randy Orton, who have proved very popular since coming back. I can't see Bobby Lashley being the one who gets the win here. LA Knight seems destined to go into some sort of angle with Logan Paul. And maybe that's what we see the start of here. We see Logan Paul and LA Knight get into it a little bit. Maybe they're the ones who kind of have a little to do in the ring more than anyone else. And it will be interesting to see how they interact moving forward on SmackDown, because we'll have to start building into that as well. Kevin Owens is a bit of a wild card, but I'd love to see Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins on a massive stage. I think that'd be a great match, and one that would be well received as well. So there are great options. I don't think if Bobby Lashley is the only one who I'll be a little bit disappointed with, because I just don't see Bobby Lashley versus Seth Rollins putting on an absolute classic in 2024. But I think everyone else there's some interesting callbacks to previous matches they've had. Storyline points 100% to Drew. But if there is any issue with his contract, crowds would love an Orton-Seth match. I know I would. Yeah, we've had, obviously, Orton versus Seth at WrestleMania before. I believe, was that the one in San Francisco where they did that crazy RKO where Seth went for the stomp, pushed himself up and got the RKO. Possibly the best RKO you'll ever see. So they can run that one back. We've got, obviously, last year was Seth Rollins versus Logan Paul. So again, there's a lot of history there. I don't think they'd do that for a second time. I really do think LA Knight and Logan Paul will set up for their own match next time at WrestleMania. So we've got a few weeks building to that, and the promos for that will be great. I think as well that would be good for Logan Paul moving forward, because LA Knight is fantastic on the microphone, and it'll be a sort of war of words, and it will be a great moment for LA Knight, because if that movement continues to move and roll on, because think it's maybe lost a little bit of steam, but he still gets a great reception each SmackDown that he comes out. It would be fantastic to see that moving forward. And yeah, I think it would be a great moment. And that might be the moment to take the belt off of Logan Paul. But he had a match again. I've seen some people say it was his weakest one so far. But he's been in the ring with some of the like who's who. Obviously, his dance partner has been The Miz a couple of times already. But as I said before, I don't think you can look past Drew in this. He's been involved with CM Punk. He's been involved with Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. We're going to get that match tomorrow night. Now, Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre feels like a premium live event match that I would watch. I'm surprised they didn't somehow find a way to do that, but it makes sense for him to be in the chamber instead. But I wouldn't have been mad to see Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre Elimination Chamber. So that to me would have maybe rounded out the card a little bit more than it already is. And Mark saying Fightful already saying they're considering giving LA Knight a US title match. That kind of feeds into what I was just talking about, that match with Logan Paul. But Drew's been doing some great work. I know a couple of my friends who I messaged about WWE have been saying that they really enjoy Drew and they really feel like it is. Don't discount Sami Zayn. Now, he's not in this match, but I'd be surprised if the Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre thing is finished. There certainly feels like there's unfinished business there, and I desperately want to see Sami pull a Shawn Michaels, somehow come out of the Elimination Chamber, move great, get himself involved. Could he cost Drew McIntyre? Could he sort him afterwards? We saw Logan Paul get involved after the fact last year. And cost Seth Rollins. So it'd be interesting to see, can he do it again? I love things like that. A little bit of a callback to a great moment in wrestling. That's probably my favorite Elimination Chamber moment when Shawn Michaels came out of the grate because he was on a quest to get his rematch against Undertaker at WrestleMania. But you saw two of the guys in that photo, and it's very strange to be rounding things off talking about a chat show on a premium live event, but it feels like something, if anything massive is going to happen, it's going to happen here. Now, right now, Roman Reigns and The Rock have not been advertised to appear at Elimination Chamber at all. But what we are getting is a Grayson Waller effect. Of course, Grayson Waller, Australian born and bred, very proud Australian. He's been doing a lot of the promo work out there. You might have seen a fantastic bit he did where he'd gone across with LA Knight and he was on, I think, a breakfast show or something. And he went very old school, protecting wrestling when the presenter was almost taking the mic. I don't know how much of a work it was, but Grayson Waller came out of it very well. And he's been rewarded with a Grayson Waller effect show on the biggest stage for him so far, and he's going to be interviewing or sitting down with Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. Now, obviously, this is going to be dynamite viewing in terms of, will we see any mention about a tag team match in terms of night one? Because everyone's convinced we're going to get Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins versus the Bloodline, being The Rock and Roman Reigns on night one. So are we going to get any kind of hint towards that? We did get a hint on Monday. Now, just as Becky Lynch was, I thought Seth Rollins nailed his promo on Monday Night Raw. It's the best I've seen him in a long time. A lot of people are a bit undecided whether they like or hate the stuff that Seth does in terms of his singing, his dancing, his kind of goofy attire, things like that. But he got serious here and kind of like took some of the blame for who Roman is today. It's telling Cody he has to win. It's the last chance anyone's really going to have before things get impossible because The Rock and the Bloodline and things like that are just getting stronger and stronger, and Roman's getting more protected. So he urged Cody Rhodes to finish his story. And I just thought in that moment, Seth Rollins was fantastic and re-elevated himself because he almost became a bit of the forgotten man, the butt of the joke. And it was kind of pointed out at the press conference that they had that he was the backup, the losers bracket title, things like that Roman was poking fun at him. But he's really trying to make this that title prestigious. And I think having a match in the Elimination Chamber for the honor of facing him at WrestleMania is a great move as well. So yeah, really interested to see how this plays out, because we did see on SmackDown The Rock cut a very heelish promo, and we're going to finish off talking about, or on this stream, talking about this on SmackDown. So let me know, did you enjoy The Rock's promo? Did you think it was great? Did you think it was rubbish? Did you think it was old school? Did you think there was something missing? Did it hit the spot for you? What are your thoughts on The Rock as a heel in 2024 about how he spoke on the microphone? I've got a couple of thoughts. Now, I'm always interested to hear what everyone else thinks, but for me, it was very much The Rock, the corporate people's champion, or the corporate champion that he was back in the day. Even the way he spoke felt like it as well. The one thing I would point out was, in 2024, I feel like you have to nuance your promos a little bit more with some intelligence, because he came across as doing the old school sort of bully, running the hometown crowd down and things like that. But what I will say is, he just came across that he didn't understand. You win the Royal Rumble, you get to pick the champion. Now, I know back in his day when he was wrestling full time, you just got the shot at the champion because they didn't split them too much back when he won the Royal Rumble. But it just kind of sounded a little bit odd, because he was talking about people, in American football, they don't get a rematch, but the team that he mentioned have made their way to the final countless amounts of times. So I'm not really sure where he was going with that one. So I just wanted it to be a bit more intelligent. He needed a little bit more than just kind of running the hometown crowd down. But I did like the way, I know Mark's saying he sounded like a robot on SmackDown. That was very much the way he kind of used to talk back in the 90s and the early 2000s when he was being a heel. And I think it was more of a callback to that. Even the vest was a sort of updated version of those jazzy shirts he used to wear and then give to Jerry Lawler. So I enjoyed that side of things. I just didn't quite hit or resonate with the side of things of calling Cody out for picking and trying to finish his story. At the end of the day, the guy won the Royal Rumble for the second time. What more does he want? He earned his opportunity there. And I think that's the side of thing I don't like. Dean's sticking up for The Rock there, says, I love that he's legit making people forget it's all fake. Was class. I love it and love the questions it raised, etc. He's definitely keeping himself relevant and moving this whole storyline on, and it'd be intriguing to see if the Bloodline make an appearance over in Australia as well. Be interesting to see where they slot this Grayson Waller effect into the show as well, because surely they can't finish it off with that, because that would suggest they are definitely going to be there and it would make it a bit too obvious. But if they are going to be there, you kind of want it to be a big deal as well. But do you give this show more to the titles and the title shots that need a little bit more love? Because I would say, arguably, this will sell itself whenever they decide to do it. Now, seeing the spoilers for SmackDown, I wouldn't expect too much out of next Friday. I'll temper your expectations there. Not a lot happens in terms of the matches or what goes on. I don't think it's being covered on Gimme a Hell Yeah. But I'm sure if you want to see the spoilers, you can go see them. If not, go into SmackDown completely fresh, enjoy it, and then you'll go straight into Elimination Chamber next Saturday as well. Norma, somewhat heelish, said Mormons with their 50 wives each had 600 inbred children. That was actually a little over the top. Surprised there was no blowback. Is Salt Lake City quite heavily populated by Mormons? Is that where the kind of joke was, I guess? That's a little bit lost in translation for us in the UK. I think Utah does have a Mormon population, but I'm not 100% sure if that's what that was actually to do with. That actually resonates a little bit more in terms of that it was a proper like heelish, dickish thing to say, and would make the promo, I guess, another level for me. But it didn't come across that way in the UK because we don't really know that. So if you can confirm that for me, Noah, that'd be great. There we go. Mormon capital of the US. Now some of the things he said makes a little bit more sense. Well, that's the thing. I think if you're going to be a heel, you do want to be close to the knuckle, and if you are doing that, that's where you're going to get the kind of the boos that they were getting, and it does now start to make a little bit more sense. So I feel a little bit silly that I didn't know that. But thank you for educating me. Every day is a school day, apparently. But again, what do you think of Rock in 2024 as a heel? Do you think it's hitting? Do you want to see a tag team match on night 1 and then individual matches on night 2? Does that dilute it somewhat, or does that make it a very interesting proposition? Because I don't think, to my knowledge, we've had any champions do it twice. We've had like a couple of matches in WrestleMania history where the champions defended a couple of times, or there's been a couple of matches for the championship, but I don't think there's ever been 2 different champions having 2 matches over the course of WrestleMania. So that'd be very interesting to see how they sell that. I think there'll be a lot of heavy lifting needing to be done on the commentary as well, and see how that goes down the live crowd. But lots of people are very excited to potentially see The Rock at WrestleMania regardless. I don't know. Do we see a swerve, and is Rock all kind of doing this to set up a match in the future with Roman? Does he cost him at WrestleMania? Lots of questions, very little answer at the moment. We might start to see things move full steam ahead as we get towards WrestleMania. Mark says, only way I want to see the tag is if Rock takes the pin, then goes away. So it doesn't seem like Mark's very keen on Rock being back in 2024. But yeah, I have a feeling, and I've said this all along, I think The Rock is trying to put this across as being very much a family thing. Then Roman is not in it for family. Roman uses that as a thin veneer, and actually what he's in it for is himself. And The Rock will slowly start to realize that as they move on. And maybe in the tag team match, we see Roman do something where he almost walks away from Rock, and then Rock will cost him possibly on night 2, and then that will set up in the future. Everyone gets that big moment for Cody, or would that potentially dilute it for Cody getting the championship? Does he need to earn it on his own and overcome the odds once and for all? Again, lots and lots of questions. We're hoping you tune in each week for Wrestling Royalties. We discuss it going on, and we will be covering it, obviously, Raw and SmackDown. We cover Dynamite. We cover premium live events over on Give Me a Hole Yeah. Plenty of content going. I will myself be in Philadelphia in a few weeks' time for WrestleMania. I'm very excited to be going across, so I'll be bringing you guys content both here and over on WrestleSphere, where you'll be able to catch up on all the goings-on live in Philadelphia. I'm very, very excited. Mark, very much not a fan of The Rock. Honestly, Rock looks like an entitled brat, is what he said. I think that's the point. I think he's trying this. They're kind of steering into that now. And I don't think we'll ever know. Maybe we'll know in the future if someone releases an autobiography or they actually do like an interview where they tell the whole story. Was this a work, or was this always the plan and they just worked people into it? Who knows? I'm just enjoying being on this road. I'm enjoying to see what happens next and what we're going to see at Elimination Chamber. You'll have to tune in next week. I believe it's a 10 a.m. start in the UK. I'm not 100% sure, but we can get that confirmed on social medias. I think the guys on Give Me a Hole Yeah are still hoping to get on some sort of live stream because that's a lovely time for us in the UK. Anyone who's going in Australia, if you're watching in Australia, I hope you have a fantastic time. And you guys deserve it. It's there's some massive fans out across down under, so it would be interesting to see how much noise can you make across in Australia. Can you live up to Canada? Can you live up to the UK? Can you live up to Puerto Rico? And bring it. And let's see if you get The Rock and Roman will turn up or not. Will they do some duty across there? But anyway, as always, I've been Andy. This has been Wrestling Royalty and Give Me a Hole Yeah. And I'm very excited to say I'll be back in 2 weeks' time. I'm having a little bit of a break. But yeah, let me go and give you a quick Give Me a Hole Yeah sting. And I will see you all in about 2 weeks' time. Keep up to date on social medias. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button for Give Me a Hole Yeah. Keep an eye out for the predictions that are coming out. As I said, I've been Andy. This has been Wrestling Royalty.